had a website, but it was almost like a vanity project back then. Now it is like an entrance fee to have a business.
Good. Hey, I wanted to let you know that the Google guarantee, the Google ads, man, I'm getting 12 to 16 calls a week.
My goal is at least do 10 to 15 more years, grow it up, sell it for 40, 50 million, maybe more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Titan Talks. My name is Jonathan Stern. I'm an engineer at Topline Pro, but once a week, I have the honor of sitting down with successful home service entrepreneurs to discuss their journeys to success. Today is May 2nd, 2024, and my guest is Nick Slavik. This is Nick's second appearance on Titan Talks. He was first on the show in February of 2023. Nick is a native of New Prague, Minnesota, is an Army veteran, and he started his painting business, Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration, in 2007. He runs a masterclass for the Painting Contractors Association and has received 15 national awards over the years for his company's craftsmanship. He is truly one of a kind, and we are so thrilled to be able to welcome him back on the show. Nick Slavik, welcome to Titan Talks.
Dude, thanks, man. It's always good to see you, and it's always good to interact with anybody from Topline. I'm big fans of you guys and what you're doing for our industry.
Well, thank you. We, in case you couldn't tell, we are huge fans of yours as well. It really is a treat just to get to chat. To kick things off, for listeners that have not heard your story, maybe take us through how you got started in painting. Give us an origin story.
Yeah, it's 10 years old. I was forced into it by my father, which is one of the common origin stories in any home service or trades-based business, which is dad did it, his kids were standing around, and you put them to work really quick. It's supporting the family, as he would call it. So 10 to 18, family business. 18 to 22, like you mentioned, I did a stint in the Army, Iraq, Afghanistan, came back, got my GI Bill, went to college. I got a bachelor's degree in business with 2 minors in forms of accounting, all with the intent of joining my family business. And when I came back and all that stuff was done, I called the family together and I said, what are we going to do here? And long story short, my father said, you're not going to do this here, and there is no spot for you. So as family businesses go, funny stories, quirky things happen between humans, especially family members. And that was the origin story of the Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration Company. So that was 16 years ago, 2007, housing crisis. I started a business before the time of social media, right? It was yellow pages and newspapers. And yeah, it's been quite a wild ride over the years.
Going back just quickly to the 10 to 18 period, did you enjoy it? Did you know that you wanted to be a painter or in the painting industry then?
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, I'm 42. I have 3 businesses. I have 4 kids. I've been to 2 wars and I've been to college. I have a lot more life under my belt than when I was a kid. So, and when I was a kid, it was miserable. You didn't want to be forced to do anything. Now, it didn't really matter that it was painting. When you're forced to do something, you don't think about it as kindly as when you choose to do it. In hindsight, I will tell you this. I was deeply satisfied by it. I loved it. I loved hanging out with my dad. I loved the clients. I got brought up and I cut my teeth on beautiful, historic farm buildings, historic houses, churches. I got to be inside people's homes. People made me homemade bread. I got to do beautiful craft work. I made people happy all the time, and I did beautiful things with my hands. And so you don't want to be forced to do anything, but that was, in hindsight, honestly, I loved it.
So 2007 rolls around, asking your dad if there's a spot at the family business. He says, I don't think so. Walk us through how you decided that starting your own thing was the right next step at that point.
Well, like most entrepreneurs, you realize that you are basically unemployable. And this is either good or bad, right? You always hear these stories about it's great to have options. It's great to feather your nest. And then you hear some entrepreneurs talk about, I burned my boats. I didn't have any options. That's how I know I can succeed. I was a little bit unintentional with all that stuff. I had just assumed that I was going to work for my family business and apply all the knowledge and skill and effort that I have for my own to that and my family members. So literally, I was blindsided. And it was just pure organic biological reaction at that point, which is I had only had a singular vision. I am going to operate a painting business. I just didn't know that it wasn't with any of my family members. And so really it was 6 months. After that happened, I got married shortly after. My father did not show up for my wedding. So that kind of solidified the old, well, we're not going to get this band back together, one of those things. And for 6 months, I actually worked for my father because I was just like perplexed. I couldn't believe it was happening to me. Like, your father wouldn't do that, right? I worked in silence with my father. We'd get to a job site. I'd go on one side of the house, he'd go on the other, and we'd just hammer all day long. And then finally, I just said, you know what? I've only ever wanted to operate a paint business. I only have one option. And obviously you didn't, but that's what I did. And it was just like, I didn't explore other options. I didn't even think about other things. It's like, oh no, this is it. It was a biological calling.
What was the hardest thing in the early days?
Well, there's what was actually hard, and then there's what I thought was hard. So just like, again, you got to put your mind in the place of a 22-year-old man who's not yet married, no family, fresh out of wars in college, and you have a completely different mindset then. So I am happy to look back and say that I was very stupid. I was very immature, and I wanted to crush my father, right? I mean, you have been smited by this man who thought you were like your own father, the person who introduced you to this. So the hardest thing for me, I thought, was going to be, I need to find a business plan that crushes my father, and that will lead to my success. Obviously, that is the most stupid, immature thing you can do, but you're a guy in his mid-20s with no life experience, right? The actual hardest thing to do, I didn't actually start till 10 years later, which is job costing, having job descriptions, standard operating procedures, marketing, website, all the things that make you a legitimate business. I was distracted by petty vengeance for years instead of growing a professional business. So yeah, there was what I thought was hard and what was actually hard.
And so, Nick, you two were operating in the same town. Is that right?
8,000 people in my hometown, and there's 2 Slavik painting companies. We lived in 2 historic homes on the same street, 6 blocks from each other. So to say it was confusing for the first couple of years for our citizens is an understatement.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the barbecue scene in Austin, but it's not unlike the Blacks, Terry Blacks. I think there's something of a feud with Austin barbecue.
Yep.
Something of father, son, brother, something like that. So,
Yep.
The first time it's happened, but I do imagine that was a little confusing for the residents. I never know which barbecue shop people are talking.
I know, right?
Let's move on then to, you said it was 10 years after you started that you started to implement the operating procedures, start to run the business like a real painting business.
Yeah.
What was the wake up call? And specifically, what did you do differently and why?
Yeah. So there's BC and AD, right? There's life before I decided to get professional, and there's life after. And I can literally narrow it down to one Friday night. That was my like hockey stick moment where the hockey stick curve started going up. I had 3 trained craftspeople working for me. Wonderful, decent human beings. I've trained them myself. They're all great people, friends. And one Friday night, they all left, and for good reasons. 2 of them, it was completely coincidental, but 2 of them were brothers, and they went to go do religious mission work out in Pennsylvania. And the other one, very shortly after, called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to pilot school." And they all did that stuff. And literally, that was the origin of. It gave me a great professional lesson, which was, I am so angry, right? Like it's August in Minnesota. We have a very short summer season, and my entire company just evaporated overnight. But also, I'm super proud of these guys. Like, that is a calling. That is a thing. And I can't judge them harshly because of it. So I was left with this very adult conundrum of like, I am so angry at you, but God love you, And it was just one of those things that said to me, if you're going to be successful, you have to create an entire system. You have to rely on yourself and not bet all your chips on other people, because it's not like the movies or a book where people turn evil and now they're your competition and they're stealing all your clients. It's like, no, you're actually proud of these people. And so in the end of that, it's like, no, you have to be better. you have to build a big professional organization that will give opportunities to people like that and usher them back in years later. So literally I can bring it down to, yeah, one night, probably 6 or 7 years ago, and in August.
And so you have 3 employees at the time, all 3 leave.
Yeah.
What what did you do?
Well, so the good part about my decent human being theory is you're surrounded by decent human beings, right? So literally, I got the one phone call from the two brothers, and I was like, "Oh man, that stinks. 2/3 of my workforce evaporated." And like an hour later, I got the other one. I was like, "Oh man, like you guys didn't like orchestrate this. This isn't like a mutiny or something, is this? Did you all plan this?" And they had no idea. They literally had no idea. So what I did was I called the guys up. They came over. We sat on my deck and we made a plan to finish out the rest of the exterior season. So they actually stayed on with me. I was like, guys, listen, this is abrupt. This is crazy. What can you do for me? And I actually worked with the institution that they were going to do that mission work for to say like, hey, what can we do? I got a business here. I just need these guys for a little bit. How can I make an easy transition? And we all worked together and we got it done. And that was great. And that's the benefit of decent human beings.
That's really neat that they were able to stay on, help you for the rest of the summer. Were you able at that point, once the busy season sort of slowed, to regroup, find more employees? Did you carry on as solo operator for a while? What did you do after that?
Yeah, this is really cool. In my master's classes, this is the thing that really helps people understand. Like when I talk about my business, telling them this thing, I have one slide that I show people in my intro that explains exactly what happened after this. We have literally, I call it on my calendar, the Exodus. It is literally when those 3 people left. And then I chart every year what happened to my business, how many people I hired, what our revenue did. And it's one slide. And the next year, my plan after that, I finally got serious. Unprofessional serious, but serious. I was heading in the right direction, which was my initial plan at that time was I want to grow an organization to the size where if 3 people leave, I don't go from 100 to 0 and I don't go to these emotional roller coasters. So my first year, my plan was I hired 10 people. I hired 2 at a time. I trained 2 people by myself. The second they were an autonomous crew, I set them free and I hired 2 more. And in that first year after the Exodus, we went from 0 to 10 human beings.
So you're scaling the number of employees your company has, but how did you ensure that there was enough work for each of them? Tell us about your process, sourcing jobs, ensuring, the 10 employees had paint jobs to go to and perform. Tell us about that.
Yeah, then there's everything else, right? There's not just that. Yeah, so here's the deal. We have to put a couple asterisks on this, which is my family and my last name has been known for painting in this town for 40 years. Since I was 10 years old. At this time, I'm low 30s, mid 30s. I had been painting for 20 to 25 years already in my town there. So to say that I scaled a business in 1 year and had all these jobs and it's just like starting your own business, it's not, right? We have to say that. Now, I will take that advantage though. I'm not going to say that it's like, I'm sorry for that. No, I will absolutely take that because we have a great reputation here. And since a young age, everybody's associated me with painting. So what the economy looked like around my business was I could never touch the demand that was out there. I mean, and it's not because of my name and reputation too. That certainly helped, but homeowners are largely underserved by professional painting contractors. So whether I was in here or not, if I was a painting contractor that had a website, answered my phone and wasn't a crook, I would have filled up a year in advance anyway. That's just how it is. So I've seen this data point over and over in our industry where people can really grow on word of mouth, repeat, referral, friends, neighbors, family, citizens of their local community to maybe $500,000 in the residential painting industry. But then you quickly outstrip your word of mouth and you have to get serious about marketing. And that's what happened to me too. So we were able to, in that year or two, I think we were able to go in my company to about 1.2, 1.4, 1.5 million before we outstripped the word of mouth, only because I had such a head of steam behind me before.
I want to ask about the 10 employees. I hear it all the time. Pros come on the show. They want to grow their business. They want to add employees, but they're having trouble finding talent. There just aren't, this sort of flies in the face of your high quality people theory, but they're having trouble finding them.
Yeah.
How do you navigate this? What are the standards that you look for as you're bringing new people onto the team, and how do you source talent?
Yeah. Yeah. Number one, it's hard. Good. Right. If it wasn't hard, there's no barrier to entry. And then everybody would own a business, right? Like literally, it doesn't matter if you're top line pro or you're a painting company or you're a social media influencer or you're anything, you're a stockbroker. There is friction in business, right? Finding labor and finding leads or projects or whatever. You need clients and you need labor and something in between, resources. There's friction in that. And thank God there is, because it allows people like me and you guys who can solve that to flourish. If there was no friction in that, if there were just companies I could call up that would give me the best labor on earth as much as I want and the best leads as much as I want, everybody would do it. So I will say this, which is, hey, business owners, if it feels like it's hard, good. Because if that gets removed, you're out of business. So you're going to have to put some effort towards it, right? So that's about as spicy as I'll get with that. But the things that we look for are literally just human decency, because in this world, there are almost no people who have experience, the qualifications, the necessary training, and the core values, like the perfect Lego piece that we're looking for. So we have to choose what of those are non-negotiables that you have to come in with, and what are the non-negotiables that we have to give you. And I will tell you this, coming in with painting skills and no morals, that we can't give you those. We can't give you human decency. We can't give you core values. We can't give you morals. You can come in with those and we can absolutely give you painting training. And it sounds obvious when I say it like that, but that's how we do it. And so really what we're looking for is, it's a sniff test. All hiring is a guess. It's a sniff test. You can do some things to skew it in your favor, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that we just took a chance on a lot of people. 30% of somebody's success in my company, I can sort of predict, but after that, it's a dice roll, honestly.
You floated that word of mouth is good enough for a lot of people up to a certain point. For you, it was good enough for longer than most people because of the Slavik name. For others, it's probably good enough to, I think you said 400, 500,000, right, in revenue. Beyond that, you need marketing. You need,
Yes.
20 years ago, yellow pages, flyers, mailbox, right? These days, maybe a website, social media, email. How do you think through the way marketing has changed, and what does that mean to you today?
Yeah, I have a unique experience because the average paint business, residential paint business in the United States, goes out of business every 18 months. So I literally, just by being here for 16 years, I have been in existence 10 times longer than the average paint business. So, and not only that, having grown up, 30 years ago in the industry, I feel like I've touched trades V1, which is the old grumpy guys yelling at kids. And now we've moved into trades V2, where it's these young, hungry entrepreneurs that want to go out there and do work-life balance and profit and all this other stuff. Same thing with marketing. Like literally, it was a newspaper ad and a yellow page ad. That was it. Marketing was solved. And that was it. That was the only paid marketing you did 16 years ago when I started my business. Facebook showed up, and then you start using that. Then Instagram shows up, right? And then you see all the success of social media platforms. You see the advent of Google map listing. You see the advent of websites too. And the trades is one of the last holdouts of people that had websites. So literally in 2010, if you had a website, people were like, whoa, like you're a spaceman in the contracting industry, right? So I've seen it all like that. So I've had the benefit of slowly being introduced to every single one of these. If I plop down and started a business right now, I have all the options, and sometimes that's not helpful. It's kind of, you get like decision fatigue.
How do you balance marketing efforts between reaching new customers and retaining existing ones, taking care of them? And talk about that in relation to marketing V2.
Yeah. So I love this. So now we have when I went to college, I literally had a marketing professor say 90% of your marketing is wasted. You just don't know which 90%. And that was, it's laughable now, right? In those days, a newspaper ad, you don't know which 90% of the newspapers were useful because all they said is they heard it in the newspaper, right? And nowadays, that's absolutely not true. You can track everything. You can geolocate people. So now we have a mountain of marketing data, right? We do a lot of simple things really well. We track every lead that comes in. We parse it out over about 8 or 9 different channels of marketing. We look at the spend for each one. We figure out a cost per lead, cost per estimate, and a cost per closed job. And now we can absolutely tell you what they cost. And all of my marketing divides along 2 things that are cheap and not scalable, and things that are expensive and infinitely scalable. So cheap and not scalable is my newspaper, right? I can get leads very cheap. 25% on average of the cost of a normal paid lead, I can get through a newspaper lead. The problem is my newspaper's only going to ever have a circulation of 16,000. You can't triple that, right? Google AdWords is infinitely scalable, but it is so expensive, right? So now how do we divide our time between that? Over the years, I have done experiments, very tightly controlled experiments where I think 2 to 3 years ago, I did the final experiment of what if I just shovel cash at this? No effort, just cash. Solve this for me. I found out very quickly that this is not solved for you by a company, by a lead source. What we found is that there's about a 50% effort marketing versus paid marketing. So obviously we have about 13 channels of marketing or 13 forms that we try to reach people. I would say probably 5 or 6 of those are effort-based. We'll call to reactivate clients, but we'll also spend on Google AdWords. But we got to watch the Google AdWords spend. We only want to spend till we get a return. We can keep spending and there's diminishing returns and we stop. And then we move some of that effort towards just reactivating previous clients. We do some door hangers every once in a while on that. So finding that balance as a pro has been probably the biggest takeaway.
13 marketing channels sounds like a lot. Do you think that's the right number for every painting business? Is it the right number for you because you're on the bigger side? What would you say to someone with maybe 1 or 2 employees who's just getting started?
Some of my channels, I'll call them channels. I'm not a professional marketer, so I might be using that wrong, but a channel to me is every door direct mail. A channel is email marketing, some way of exposing myself to other people and getting some business. And I say 13 because I want to be very specific about the number of things I do, but posting a picture to your Google profile on Google Maps is one channel. And if you post a picture once a week, to me, that's one channel that got somehow manipulated in 1 week. So I don't want you to think that it's like, some very sophisticated artificial intelligence algorithm that has to be constantly done. And that's one channel. Literally, sometime it's like I just update my newspaper ad once a week, and that is a marketing channel. So finding that mix is good. I would say for the young contractor, it's actually a pretty easy thing. Like this isn't a mystery of how to get work early on, which is you solve problems with money, with effort, or a combination of both. And you probably have more time, effort available when you start off than money. So there's a thing that we've been calling in the industry the quadrinity. If you want the biggest bang for the buck in marketing, you get website, you get Google listing, you get Facebook, and you get Instagram. All those things are basically free. A website doesn't cost that much. You guys have one of the best examples in the entire industry of what can be done super professionally with not a lot of capital outlay, right? In a super professional way. Literally for almost nothing, you can get on the quadrinity. And if you use your effort to post, to constantly tap, you can create $500,000 to $1 million worth of business. Honestly, that's it. You don't even have to start paying for marketing.
What do you say to those who are resistant, specifically to the website? Maybe they, maybe Facebook is Facebook, Google, Instagram. What's that? The Trinity, and the website would be the quadrinity.
A quadrinity, yep.
But they're happy with the Trinity, right?
Yeah, that's
why do they need a website? What value is that bringing?
Yeah, 10 years ago, it was like, man, you should get a website. It's so cool. And now, when somebody says, I don't have a website, we say, stop everything you're doing. None of the things we're talking about to professionalize your business are any good unless you have that. To me, a website is like a business license nowadays. You are actually harming yourself by not having a website. I mean, 16 years ago, almost every home service contractor got their business by word of mouth, right? And that's a human talking to a human at work, over the back fence, things like that. Nowadays, the modern word of mouth is you might talk to somebody. A neighbor just got their house painted. You walk over, who do you use? Nick Slavik. That's fine. What do they do next? They go to Google. They type in Mike Slavik. They type in Bill Slavik, whatever. I can't quite remember the name, but Google will fix it for me, right? And they do that. And then how much of that quadrinity you have and how much you update it, you'll take up more of that top page, right? So if you do not have a website, if you're not on Facebook, if you're not on Instagram, you don't have a Google listing, you may not even show up on Google. Google is the new word of mouth. So literally, I will say the cheat code for the lowest investment for the biggest return is a website nowadays. It literally is a business license that allows you to even be considered a legitimate contractor nowadays.
Yeah, it really is a game changer in terms of just professionalism, and maybe you get a few leads, right? But in terms of putting your best foot forward and being the sort of business that you certainly want to be, nothing beats a website.
Nothing.
Nick, I want to talk about the PCA. Tell us a little bit more about what you do with the PCA, what value it brings to the painters that you work with.
Yeah. So the PCA, the Painting Contractors Association, is something so near and dear to my heart. It is a 140-year-old nonprofit that serves our industry. So if you want to talk about, like I talk about, I've been around forever. It's been 30 years.
Almost Civil War era.
It's insane.
Not quite,
it's
but
insane.
very close. Yeah.
I have on my farm an 1880s farmhouse, right? And that thing is like a museum. It's amazing how old it was. There's no electricity. It's a fireplace to heat food. That's when that association started. That is amazing to me that the same humans that were operating and thinking about the same thing, and if we're being honest, using brushes and paint, which haven't honestly changed that much, they're still here. And the mission back then and the mission now is to build better contractors. It's to advocate for this industry, to professionalize it. It has not wavered in 140 years. So it is the keeper of training. It's the keeper of resources. It's a keeper of standards and advocacy. So we have the industry's most rigorous business training as well as painter training. Like we have native Spanish speakers with a learning management system, 2 languages, quizzes, certifications, and everything. And we also have something that it's a little harder to explain, but anybody who's ever owned a business or been in the trades, you experience loneliness. And it is solitary, right? And there's not a lot of people who do what you do. And like we talked about, there's a lot of friction in what we do. And that means only 4 to 7% of the entire US population will ever start a business that makes more than $1 million of top line revenue a year, right? So the amount of people you can commiserate with and talk about and learn from is 4 to 7% of the population. That is lonely. So what the PCA does is connects you with other people who are literally right in your shoes. You have a common language. You can learn from each other. And that's a lot of fancy talk, right? Like I love it. I'm biased. Here's the real data though. PCA members are 15 times larger and longer lived than the average painting contractor. And my business literally is an example of that.
What are the classes that you teach? What specifically do you help the members with?
Yeah. So in service of the industry, I formed a thing called master's classes, which is basically like, I have a business that's within the top 1% of all businesses, paint businesses in the United States. And I haven't got it all figured out, but I have a lot of data and I have a lot of feelings, and I've been doing this a long time. So I take real-time data and feelings and examples from somebody who actively runs a painting company. And we talk about apprenticeship. We talk about recruiting. We talk about marketing. We talk about estimating, how to come up with price and market price. We talk about leadership team. We talk about job costing, industry benchmarks, some nerdy stuff. We talk about coding science. And it's basically, there's about 12 of those little master's classes that I do that each touch on one area of my company. And I deep dive into them, data and feelings. And the value comes from, I am not a coach. I don't have any software to sell. I am literally just a guy running a painting business doing it right now. And I'm sharing everything I have with you.
How many of the people in your classes are thinking about making the transition into painting? Is it entirely painters, or are there people doing other things, thinking about starting their own painting business?
Yeah, I would say way north of 90% is painting contractors. That's my those are my people. That's why Dog Whistle too with that show Ask a Painter Live, and that's who shows up for that. Now there still is a bunch of carpenters, there's a bunch of handymen and stuff like that, and ancillary trades, but yeah, it really is painting businesses. And on average, they are the industry average, which is there's typically one person involved. 99% of all painting businesses in the United States are single owner operators, and that's kind of their first contact with other paint business owners, with what a professional business looks like. And I can see eyes light up during these things, just like my eyes lit up when I saw somebody do what I do. That kind of set me on that hockey stick curve.
That's a good transition into, I think, the final segment, which is let's zoom out a bit and think about the industry as a whole. How do you see it evolving over the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, this is easy. I got involved with the PCA 6-7 years ago, and it was, we're walking around like it was all just struggle businesses everywhere. And now I travel. I probably do about 18 events a year where I see little pockets in all the major metro areas of painting contractors. And there has been a marked increase in the amount of humans getting into the industry, the enthusiasm, the diversity, the youth, and the business acumen. And it's going wild. Like we had in the 140-year history of this Painting Contractors Association, there had never been a specific event for Hispanics, Spanish speakers, and there's never been a specific event for women. And we instituted that as a board of directors last year. And on a moment's notice, there's 100 professional paint business entrepreneurs who happen to be women who showed up in Nashville for our first ever Women in Paint conference. And it just shows you like there is like that changes. 10 years ago, that wouldn't have happened at all. And it is now. And the whole goal of the PCA was to make all this happen or stand alongside of it or facilitate it. And I'm happy to say that it is happening. And the future of the industry is in the next decade, this is a highly fragmented, highly unprofessionalized industry, right? You heard the stats. 99% of us are single owner operators. We'll go out of business in a year and a half. And the average paint business owner takes home $43,000 a year, which is $21.50 an hour. You can see why they go out of business in a year and a half. If I was someone who owned a home, that is a painful way to get your house painted, right? Some of these paint jobs can cost $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and you're handing it to somebody who makes $21 an hour and will not exist in a year and a half. And that's not a great professional experience. And we're seeing all that change now. And so in the next decade, what you're going to see is that paint business owners are going to get serious about this stuff, which is marketing analytics, recruiting, supporting their people, job descriptions, pay scales, all the things that makes a business professional. We're seeing it now. This whole industry is going to change in the next decade.
We're going to have Nick Slaviks all over the country.
Well, people are going to leapfrog me in no time, man. I'm just going to be that old crusty guy standing here like back in my day.
Nick, at Titan Talks, we like to close with a rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Oh, it's my favorite, man.
What has been your proudest moment at the helm of Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration?
Seeing young people learn the craft that I did and creating time and money freedom from that skill they learned.
How has running a business helped you grow most?
Oh, this is a 2-hour conversation, and I understand that this is a rapid fire answer.
That's all right. So sometimes people expand on maybe.
I will keep it brief. I'll expand as much as you want, but painting is easy. The humans are difficult. And in my interactions with humans, finding people, recruiting them, taking care of them, fostering them, having interpersonal conflicts with them has brought me to my knees, brought me to soaring heights, just pure ecstasy and everything in between. And it has literally retrained my mind and reset the standards of how humans interact, how a boss should interact with employees, how employees should interact with a boss, and how bosses should interact with the greater industry and things like that. And I literally have become a better father and a human because of my paint business. And I am so grateful for it.
That's so cool. What is the greatest challenge that you're facing right now?
Humans. It's always humans. And this is not painting businesses. This is not the trades. It's always going to be humans. And when I say difficulty, it's not that it's constant failure. It's that you don't have to worry about your website. You don't have to worry about the can of paint from Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore. you have to worry about your humans because humans are irrational. They're squishy. They have personal lives outside of your business, whether we want to believe it or not. And they think about things other than your business, and they have their own goals and things they want to accomplish in life. And some of them don't include you. Some of them only include you. Learning how to be a professional mentor and boss and facilitator of somebody's time and money freedom is the hardest thing on earth to do. It is literally unsolvable. You can have great success with it, but there's not a pattern of success with every human. And it's management and leadership is a thing we'll have to learn and constantly put effort for the rest of our lives. And it's the thing that makes me clench my fist the hardest. And it makes me the thing that's most proud is that.
And to close, what would you say your goal is? Why are you doing all this, Nick Slavik?
Believe it or not, I have 5 professional people helping me with this and have been for years, coaches and mentors and everything else. And for good or for bad, I like making people happy. And it is a thing that's brought me a lot of pain in life, the happiness of others, but it's also driven me to where I am today. And that flying a little too close to the sun with people's happiness sometimes can have you do great achievements. And it can also make you lose all the sleep in the world. So for better or worse, I truly get deep satisfaction out of creating opportunities for others, mentoring them through that, seeing them surpass what I'm capable of, and then cheering them on from there. It's the deepest satisfaction I have.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for returning to Titan Talks. It's been so good to again hear your story and chat with you about the latest in the painting industry. We're so excited for everything to come. And again, thank you for being a part of Titan Talks.
Now, huge fan of you guys, huge fan of you and your conversation style. And I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity. This is awesome.